The Lesson 8 is about sharing a project, and it's very easy in Final Cut. And most programs are becoming pretty compatible with each other. The share function is on the right side of the dashboard. There's a hooked arrow there. So if you click it, you should get some things about share project. If not, you can hit add destination, and here's all your choices. All you do is drag them to the left. So if you want a new destination, like, you just drag it over here and add it. So the nice thing about that, you can have as many Vimeos or Facebooks or YouTubes as you want, and you can put in your password or someone else's password, like a client, and it can go there. What I usually do though is I export a master file. So what the master file does, I'll go there, you can go audio only, video only, or video and audio, so you can export whatever you want. The codec, if you need to change it, you can change it there. Usually it's same as source. And then whether or not you have chapter markers, you can include that. And when you're done, you can open it with a certain program or do nothing, which I have there. So it's that easy. So if once I have my master file thing set up, I could hit share master file. And I'll get my window. There we go. So here's all the tags it's going to export with it. In the settings, ProRes, I've got it going to 422. I can pick any of those others. So what it'll do will give you a full quality QuickTime movie, which is why this gigabytes is so high, 1.35 gigabytes. So I can check the information, the settings, make sure it's what I want, and hit next, and then it'll ask me where to save it to. So it's as simple as that. If I want to save it to YouTube, by the way, you can save it as a master file and then upload it to YouTube. Or another thing I like to do is save it as a 1080 and then upload it to YouTube, or 720. So what I did here is I dragged a compressor icon over. I'll show you where that is. Add destination compressor settings. Just drag that into there. The compressor settings, if I drag that over there, it'll give you choices. So you can pick something for your phone, DVDs, podcasting. There's Vimeo, YouTube, all sorts of different choices. So if I pick my YouTube one, so it just asks me the resolution, compression, and then the details would be my name and password. Then you can upload it right to YouTube. So you can either upload it to your desktop or hard drive, compressed, and then to YouTube, or go directly to YouTube. Sometimes I like to put a version on my desktop because then I can upload it to other sources. So actually, that's what I've been doing for these lessons. I've been doing exporting to HD 720p, and then I've been uploading to YouTube. That way I have a master copy of my exported video. If I went straight from here to YouTube, I wouldn't be able to keep a copy on my hard drive of the exported QuickTime version that I wanted. So that's why I do it that way. You can also go straight to somebody's phone. There's Apple devices. So there's all of these choices, and these are always growing. Now, if you want to save some time and export it to more than one place at a time, you can export a bundle. So you put the bundle in there, then you can just drag a bunch of stuff into that bundle. So you can go, maybe I want a YouTube, and maybe maybe a Vimeo, so all that at the same time. Now if you don't want this, you can right click and hit delete. So anything I do here, I can just delete it. There's a couple other things that are neat with the share file. When you share a master file, you have a dialog box under settings with a new section that wasn't here before, which is roles. So if you can export video only as separate files, audio only as separate files, so if you need audio tracks, or multi-track QuickTime movie. If you hit that, you get all your roles, so you can export them all, and it's a large QuickTime file with all of these separate out as stems. And then you can add a separate audio track as well. So this is a way to, if you're working in a place that needs everything separated out as stems, those usually go to different editors. And so That would be a really good thing to know how to do. When you hit next, again, you just learn where you're going to save it. So when the person opens a QuickTime, they can just get to the dialogue or the music or the effects. And if you named your roles correctly in your program, that'll work just fine. Another thing I use a lot is exporting stills. I don't know if this is in the book here. I think it was in another section, but let's just say I like the shot here of helicopter pilot and I want to export it for use on a artwork or something. So in the share there is save current frame. If you don't have it, again, go to add destination and find it. So save current frame, you can drag it over there. Okay, so share current frame, save current frame. All that's going to do is export that as a JPEG. So in my settings, I have TIFF, PNG, which will give you a transparent background for Photoshop. You can actually export a Photoshop file, a JPEG, so any of these things. So if I usually do a JPEG or TIFF or PNG if I'm doing something where I want some transparency, and hit next and then save it to your desktop. And you can also bring that back into your program, into your project if you need that still. So stills are easy to create. It's different than creating a freeze frame though. It's just exporting a JPEG or a Photoshop file. Later in chapter 8 they also talk about XML files, and we've been importing and exporting them, so you should know how to do it. But to go over it here, File, Export XML. What that is going to do is give you the instructions that you can email someone, for example, the XML file. They still have to have the media files though, all of the movie files, so that the instructions will load the project. But it's a great way just to email an XML if they have access to the original media somewhere. Super easy to use, and like I said, you should be familiar with it now because we've been importing XMLs for these lesson files up through lesson 7. The last thing on here is using compressor. Now I actually own compressor, so what I can do here, we saw compressor in the share, but there's another place where it happens. File, and then I can export using compressor. Maybe down here on my project. Send to compressor, okay. So now my compressor program will open. And it gives you just some more choices than the ones that come with Final Cut Pro. And this is a $49 program. Compressor and Motion are both extra programs. So there we go. So it needs to know what project that I'm outputting at outputs. So I can, like for example, create a Blu-ray here, or any of the other formats you saw before. Publish to Vimeo, publish to YouTube, publish to phones. I'll make an uncompressed master file, so all of those. So for now, let me just show you what Blu-ray looks like. So I get a Dolby Digital file, which is a Dolby Digital.ac3, the surround sound. And then I get, and so that's the sound, and then I get the movie file, which is H.264. So I'll get 2 files on my desktop, which I can author a Blu-ray on. So if I start that batch, and let me delete something there I didn't need anymore. So if I start that, and then it'll go and ask me for a Blu-ray, although it looks like I don't have my external drive hooked up right now. But so compressor is just similar to the share, but there's more functionality in it. You also have a preview window up here. You can add chapter markers, or they'll import your markers from your project. So chapter 9, I'm not going to go through the whole chapter, but I wanted to show you some ways that I love to use libraries. So one of the things I love to do is copy between libraries and paste. So for example, if I had a title or an end title, a lot of times I use my Renzone production logo, so I'll have some video. Put it at the end of my, see, it's giving me a warning I'm editing between projects, which I know. And here's some audio, which I'm going to put under here. Okay, so I've got this little thing going on that now I wanted another project. So what I can do is I can copy either one at a time, or in this case I'll just do both. Hit Command C, copy. I can go to any other project now. So I'll just open an older version of this and go to the end of my project and hit paste or Command V, and there it is, it pasted right there. So you can copy and paste between projects, which is really a nice thing to do. Another thing about projects that you may not realize is these purple things that are the projects that are now saved in your hard drive or folders. If you right click and you go show package contents, first of all, right clicking, let me go over that again because I haven't done this in a while. Under the Apple menu, go to System Preferences. I'm just using a Magic Mouse, so it's a wireless mouse. And what you have to do is make sure that the secondary click is on so that you can click on the right side of your mouse. If you don't do that, when you click on the right side, nothing will happen. So it should default to this, I'm not sure, but you have to make sure that the left and right side are active. And then there's more gestures that I turned some of them off because they were driving me crazy. So looking at my library, I can right click and I can open show package contents. This is true also with Logic. They have a new folder thing, and to see the contents you have to right click and show contents, and then you can see everything that was in that library, including all your media. In this case, there's all my original media, which is pointing to wherever I had saved those at. So those are meaning this is not my original media, but it's pointing to another folder. Now, if I had done that project and said copy original media in there, then those hooked arrows would not have been there. Here's another one. Let's see what I have in there. Show package contents. So I have a bunch of folders, and let's see if I have any original media here. So again, I do not. These are references to media. So you kind of have to know how you're saving these projects. And if you remember, Final Cut Pro Preferences, when you do importing, you can copy safe because you've got a copy of your media, or leave in place, meaning you're going to get those hooked arrows like I have, meaning it's referencing the media that's stored in a different place. So it just depends which way you want to do it. Now, if you're on a computer that is slower, or you have a super huge project, you can create proxy media, which will create a small copy of it. Optimized is a full resolution copy. So chapter 9 goes through different library functions, and this is one area that I'm pretty sure is near the end of the book because it keeps changing. And it changes because people share files now on the cloud in different ways, and so there's more functionality being added in all the different softwares, not just Apple, but Adobe as well, and also Avid. So this chapter, I would expect in every version of any book, would keep changing. So I didn't go through the whole chapter, but the stuff that I use, I went over that part. And that, I think, is chapter 9. Yes, so last one will be chapter 10. We've reached lesson 10, which has some of my favorite fun things in it that are really important to use, chroma key and multicam. In the beginning of this project, however, they go through manual settings for a new project. This has been really important for me when I go work at other places and they want things saved in a certain way or exported in a certain way. And so you don't just want to guess on how it's importing or exporting, and it goes through using manual settings for a new project in chapter 10. So the way it is, the way you can find that is when you do a new project or event, you can use the Final Cut Preferences. So you have your importing, you can check all of that stuff, and then they have a custom settings in the project one. So let me go in there, File, new project, and custom settings. So they have, based on the first clip, is there how your video properties are going to pan out. If you go to custom, then you can start changing your format, resolution, and frame rate as well. So you can change it from your original based on your first clip. I've definitely had to do that on the job. And then as well, you can change your audio. So you can go from surround sound to stereo, vice versa, change your sample rate from 48 kilohertz down to, it goes down to 32 or as high as 192. So if you're doing like a Blu-ray and you have a lot of capacity to do a higher sample rate, you can do that. And then the render format, which if you have like a red camera, if you want 4x4, it'll give you all the color. So those are important as well. So also the starting time code, if you didn't want to start on 0 and you just want to start it in an hour, you can change this first number to 1, and that starts at 1 hour. And sometimes people like to do that because they don't like the computer to start at 0. So the first thing you have to do in this project is import some other clips, which is called LV3. You should have it from my Google Drive. So this is how I did it: file, import, media, and then I navigated over on my particular computer to where I have all of my stuff, and I just grabbed the entire LV3 folder and hit import. Selected. What that has in it is some chroma key shots, some sync shots, and it made a people folder. So that's LV3. And I made a new project. I called it Chroma Multicam for Chapter 10. And let's start with the chroma key. So if I select this guy and hit the whole, I select the whole thing by hitting X and then hit E, Command or Shift Z down here. There we go. So it's shot with a green screen, although you can see the green screen, it's a portable one, and there's some gray space on the right side that is not going to key out, but we can deal with that later. So the way to chroma key, it's an effect, right? So if you go to your effects in your dashboard and hit keying, you'll see the different kind of keys they are. So usually I just use the keyer and I drag it on the clip, and now it's black. So now you can see it's rendering. It has to render that green out. Then I'll put something behind it, like a different image or something. So let's say I went and found anything on the internet, so I'll find forest images. Alright, so here's a cool picture. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this one, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw it into my project. Okay, so I've got this image here. I'm going to go ahead and put it behind this other one by hitting Q. Now I have to have it under, so I'm going to drag it under this one. So what happened here is wherever there was green screen, now I have the forest. Which I'll show you if I disable this. I'm going to hit V. You can see where the black was. And then hit V again. You can see it come in. You can see here there's some parts that didn't get covered because he's not entirely in front of the green screen. There's some spaces here that are missing. So that's something that I would have to fix. Okay, so now that I have this problem here with the green screen, we have to deal with it. One thing I can look at is transform and crop. So if I go to my layer with the forest and I hit transform, I can change just the forest layer. Let me, in fact, delete that guy. So it's a full screen already, so I can't do anything about that. So then I have to use a mask. So in that case, I'll go to my effects and put mask over here on this guy. And I'll get some of these circles, and I can just move the mask where I want it so that, there we go. The force is now going to fill up the whole thing, but I want to make sure I get the actor's image in there as well. So now I've got two effects from the green screen. I've got the keyer and I've got the mask, which is shown here on the right. So between those two, there you can get almost anything done. The other thing to notice in the keyer, just so you know, there's a ton of stuff in here. There's color selection, so if you want to key out different types of backgrounds, matte tools, spill suppression, light wrap, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So this tool is a lot deeper than it looks on the surface. The same with masks. There's a bunch of color corrections, transform, crop, so you can do a lot with the mask to achieve the desired results when you're doing compositing. The other thing to know about this is you can do as many layers as you want. So if you have a bunch of things shot on green screen, that's pretty much, I think of Star Wars when I think of that, have the background stars and different ships flying around and people fighting and all kinds of effects, and it's just layers of things that are keyed out, and then if needed, using the mask. One thing to remember about a green screen is it has to be lit well. If it's not lit well, then what happens, let me just take out the forest completely, and the keyer, I'm going to take out the keyer here. What happens is you would get wrinkles in the green screen, and you're always going to get shadows, and it won't key out perfectly. So a green screen has to be well lit and as much as possible no wrinkles. Okay, so the section here is on multicam, which I love the way it works in Final Cut 10. So the first thing is importing clips. I did it, but I'll show you how. I went to, I was in my lesson, and I hit File, Import Media. Navigated back to where that LV3 is. There's a file folder in there that says Extras, and then there's Multicam. If you open it, you'll see the archives of the Canon 5D and 7D clips. So just go ahead and shift click them. You can also command click all four like that and import selected. So I did that, and I have these 4 clips. So what I'm going to do now is highlight them all. And what this new version of Final Cut did, which I didn't even know, it'll sequentially place these in a multicam based on the time code and the name. So you'll get a 2-angle clip, and then you'll get the first 2 and then the second 2. So once I highlight them, I can right click and then go new multicam clip. I can title it. I'll put 2 angles multicam. Now it's going to use, it's going to match them up using audio. If that doesn't work, the best thing to always do when you're doing multicam shooting is use a slate, because you get both a video and audio spike, and that'll help the computer identify how to match those up. But there's all kinds of custom settings as well here, so you can usually get those matched up as long as you shot it correctly or had some kind of audio or video cue. So once I do that, I'll show you, if I just open this up, just double click it, this is what it did. It made, turn my volume up a little bit. It made shots here. I can turn on my video and audio on both tracks. So I have audio from the first one and the second one. So you can see it's MC10, MC11. Those come from the 5D. And MC2, MC20, and MC21, that comes from the 7D. So I can listen to any of those as well.
So again, it builds that personality. It kind of.
So that's from the 5D. The 7D, let's see what we got here.
Personality. It kind of allows me to.
So the 7D is the second angle, and the camera's further back, and it's really echoey. So just remember that. You're going to want to use this video, but not that audio. And it's probably the same over here. So again, the 5D.
It's the love of flight and the love of.
Good audio. The 7D.
And really the passion is.
Really echoey audio. So going back to my project, I have a new project, Chromo Multicam. I can take this new clip that I made, and it has a little multicam symbol in it. Just click it and hit E. So here's the entire thing. Now, what I've got going on right now, let me hide this. I would normally just see the top layer, which is the first camera. But what I can do is by the little switch here, hit Show Angles. And I can look at how many angles I have. So if I had 4 angles, right now the bottom 2 are blank because I didn't have 4 angles in that clip. But I can go up to 16 at a time. Right now I'm going to do 2. And I've got 3 things up here. Enable video and audio switching, enable video only switching, and enable audio only switching. What I want to do, remember, is keep the audio from this first one, but switch angles. So I'm going to choose this middle one, enable video only switching. That way I keep the audio and then I don't keep switching the audio. I'm just going to switch the video. So all I have to do is click on it now. I can just watch this thing.
Cat hunts anything. Actually, again, it was just an identity to want to build a character, and I think that's true in so many things. It enables a connection, if you will, to the aircraft, even for myself in a way. A lot of times you hear people saying, you know, the ship.
So what I'm doing basically is cutting between angles, and that's why it becomes a little razor blade. So when I look at my little cuts, you can see. Here's my main video. So let me make that a little bigger for you. So you can see where my cuts are.
Want to build a character, and I think that's true in so many things. It enables a connection, if you will, to the aircraft, even for myself in a way. A lot of times you hear people.
Now notice the audio is only from this one because that one will have the good audio in it. I'm not using the audio from the second one. So the other thing about this, you can roll these, and we used the roll tool before, but if you don't like your edit, you can roll them. You can also click on an edit and just delete it. If you don't like it, go back to the original angle. You can click anywhere you want and change the angle. So it's really super powerful. So it all depends where the playhead is. So I can even just look and then change an angle there. The other thing I can do is edit just like I normally did. So if I go to my blade tool, for example, and I don't like when he's stuttering. Let me look here. In fact, here's a whole section I don't want in here. I'll just blade where I don't want it.
The passion I have for what you do.
And just like before, I can delete clips. It's still a magnetic timeline, so I can edit just like I did before as long as I'm on the right tools. So
what it hunts, anything the camera will shoot. So that's pretty much it. So what the passion I have.
So I didn't like that little part. So I'll just ripple trim there.
Pretty much it. So
and so right now I'm just treating it just like normal editing.
The passion I have.
I'll do that side as well.
That's pretty much it. The passion I have for what I do with it.
Now notice there's a jump cut there. So what I would do usually when I have that situation, if I don't have B-roll, I'll create some kind of transition. So let me just show you an idea. Get a transition that I like. Maybe just like I like this clock one. So I'll show you an idea to do for a jump cut if you don't have B-roll. So I'll put a transition in there, and again, you just treat it like a normal clip, even though there's 2 layers.
That's pretty much it. The passion I have for.
Well, that didn't work that great on himself because it looked actually kind of weird, but you'd have to have something probably where that jump cut is, and probably it'd be like a B-roll in that case. But I'm always I deal with this a lot for interviews, which is why
the passion
when there's a jump cut like that, there's something that can go over it.
The passion I have for what I do with H5 Productions and flying this aircraft is just that. It's the.
So that's multicam. The trickiest part, honestly, is making sure that you do the switching up here correctly. So whether you're switching the audio every time, or you're keeping you're keeping the audio and video and just switching the video, or you're switching audio and video each time. So you have to pick the right scenario. Once you get that set up, then it's very easy from there. And I believe that is chapter 10. They have a section at the end of the chapter about configuring audio channels and components, and that is in the channel configuration. And sometimes if I want to play with that, if I again open the clip up here, I can take out, for example, take out audio or video from any clip in this multicam, or I can just look at the setup so it makes sense to me. I can also look at the channel configuration in the audio. So for each clip, it gives me, just like before, I can do stereo or dual mono. If I did dual mono, I can see if there's like a weaker channel. This one actually is only stereo, so I can't do anything there. Let me check this one over here. Stereo, dual mono. Okay, there we go. So this one,
That's true in so many things.
super echoey.
And I think that's
But let's just say one was good, one was bad. I could uncheck it just like we did before, and then this, it would give me one good stereo. And put it back. So don't forget, you can always use the audio channel configurations just like we did before on any multicam clip. So if you have, it's a common thing because some cameras have 2 to 4 inputs, or you may have a field recorder with 8 or 16 inputs, and then you may need to fix the audio before you go edit all of this stuff. Go back to my program, and there we go.
the camera.
When you're done, you just hide the angle viewer, hide angles, and then you can watch this back. If you want to do further editing, just go ahead and show angles, and then you can get back to this scenario and pick as many angles as you want. That's it for chapter 10. The last part of this book shows you how to assign keyboard shortcuts. If you're using different programs, it's really convenient to make some of the keys the same. So you can go in there, and they're located in Final Cut Pro. I think it's commands. I don't usually do this that much. Yeah, so commands, customize to open command editor. So command customize. So here's the command editor. You can type anything and find out what the shortcut is, and then you can change it. So that's what this last Appendix A is about. And then it also has a lot of things on the default commands. So like the main one, zooming in and out, and the inspector, the tools, waveform editor. So it's a really handy section to look at for all the keyboard shortcuts. Then there's Appendix B on editing native formats. So for SD and HD, look at that as well. It has audio and video, and then at the very end is the glossary. So I hope these lessons have been very helpful. I've enjoyed doing them, and again, the Final Cut Pro is very easy to use. In fact, the new iMovie out that just came out 2 weeks ago is Final Cut Pro based. So you can now automatically use Final Cut Pro and iMovie, and they're compatible with each other. So if you're out in the field and someone has a Mac, you need to do something, you can just hop on iMovie. So thanks for listening.